when you're doing this live stuff, pretty much.
How long have you been doing this for, Nilo?
Huh?
How long have you been doing this for, the Be Smart on Air?
Good question. I think it's something like perhaps 3 years.
Right.
Or well, it's been Be Smart on Air. What a name for a live thing on the web. Rarely works for me actually, but I've been doing some other stuff as well. So I have like different kinds of whatever shows.
Yeah.
So, but this is the one that's normally in English and international kind of touch.
Right. Okay. So, I've had a look on your YouTube, and you've had some interesting people on as well. That's good.
Yeah, like you.
Like me, I'm afraid I'm not quite sure if I live up to those expectations, but I'll do my best.
Absolutely. By the way, since we are live, so I guess I'll try to start. I should start with some kind of an introduction here for the whole thing. Yeah. So better I do that. Hi, folks. I'm Nilo. Once again, Be Smart on Air. Getting started here. That is some tough name for a whatever this is, like a webcast. Kind of hard to live up to. That's my experience, but well, I do my best. And today it is apparently February 25. We are moving towards the best part of the winter here at the North Pole, northern Sweden. Same thing, some people say. Getting beautiful sunlight and beautiful winter weather here. And we are once again live through Hangouts on Air, as usual, and thereby also through YouTube. And that's the cool thing about Hangouts on Air. One of the cool things that you can broadcast live. Anyone can do it. And the whole thing is like recorded automatically through YouTube as well. So it's pretty neat. And on top of this, you can, if you want, to make the whole thing to a traditional podcast. And that's another story, I suppose. But today, this kind of different and kind of special, since it's actually not only one of my interviews. It's not actually kind of a regular Be Smart on Air episode either. It's a different beast today, I think, a bit. Well, we'll get to that in a second, I think. Anyway, I've got with me Richard here from somewhere in the world. Richard, great to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Nilo, as well. Thank you very much for having me.
A pleasure. And I don't even try, saying your last name. I would massacre it completely. So what's the correct pronunciation here?
Well, if you have a go at saying my last name, I'll have a go at saying your last name.
I'll give you mine.
Your name, Nilo Alhovara.
You do a great job of that. No problem.
Oh, you see. Okay, so you have a go at mine. What do you think mine would be?
I think something pretty much, my mother tongue is Finnish, and Finnish is really simple, as everyone knows, because if you see something written in Finnish, you can just say it, and you say it, perfectly well. And if I would go after that, I guess I'd say something like Kielty.
That's absolutely right.
Man, I got to be sweating here.
It's Irish.
Irish. Okay.
Father was Irish and my mother was English, so I have a very English name, forename Richard, and a very Irish surname Kielty. So
very cool. And where are you located now? You could be, of course, pretty much anywhere.
I could be. That's right. But I am actually at home in my. I'd like to say my office. It sounds very glamorous. It is in effect my son's bedroom. Hence the Star Wars picture behind me there.
Very nice.
Which I could take down and look a little bit more professional, but hey, you've got your flags behind you. I thought I'll give my little contribution here as well.
Absolutely, I've got my usual setup here: the e-twinning school collaboration flag and the kettle and everything.
Yeah, so let's go. We're all set to go, and you're in your office as well.
I am in very northern Sweden. Yep. Hence the North Pole joke, but not awfully far from the truth, I guess. At least for some people. So,
well, we're not quite in the North Pole here. We're just outside of York, which is kind of where would it be? Where would it be? It's just for people to understand, would be not far from a city called Leeds, and also not far from Manchester. People will know Manchester, Manchester United, and Manchester City, of course. So yeah, but so I am here and looking forward to it.
Yeah, let's go through a little bit of background here. And actually, since I've got you here on the line or whatever, what's the way to put it? I don't know. Since we are meeting here, it's a meeting, for heaven's sake. So you are and have been heavily into education for quite a long time. I think that's at least correct, huh?
That's correct. I've been involved in education since 1990 when I started training as a teacher. I've been both. I've worked in two schools as a regular class teacher. I've been in leadership positions. I've been a deputy head teacher and a head teacher of 2 schools in the UK, and I've also been a local authority consultant and advisor as well. So yeah, and now I work for Challenging Learning, which is an international company. Although it's UK based, we do a lot of work all over the world. And my role in Challenging Learning is what's called a global relationship manager and a lead consultant. I manage a big project on visible learning in a commune in Kalundborg in Denmark. That's got 20 schools in that project. So that takes up quite a lot of my time. And in fact, I'm over in Denmark every week, really. Sometimes for a day or 2 days, sometimes for longer. But predominantly my work would be in Scandinavia, with a little bit of work as well in the UK. So I've just been working with some schools, some academy trusts in the UK, did some work with school earlier on this week. Where was I this week? Nottingham. Trying to think where I was. And it's all around challenge and dialogue and inquiry, and getting kids to think a little bit deeper about things, to question things, and to think differently about things. That's
and to get even teachers think a bit deeper about things.
Yeah, absolutely, because
if possible, if at all possible.
That's right. Yeah. So we do work with we predominantly work with teachers and leaders as well. Although we do sometimes we do work with children in classes as well. But predominantly our work is working with teachers, because they have obviously the biggest impact. They're the people that will work with their kids themselves in their own classes, so they understand their own context. So that's why we work with them. Yeah.
I'm a bit curious. How many traveling days do you have in a year?
In a year? Well, I haven't done this job for a year, so that's an interesting question.
Okay, all right.
I only started working for Challenging Learning in April of 2015. This time last year, I was still a principal of a large primary school in North Yorkshire. So this kind of side of work for me is relatively new in terms of the traveling side of things. But I would say on average,
you do travel a lot, huh?
I do travel a lot. I would say on average, I would probably travel every week, and it would be for probably at least a couple of days, 2 or 3 days during the week would be on average, would be where yeah. So it's a lot of traveling. Yeah.
So it's hard to keep track of where you are.
Where I am and what I'm doing, that's right.
Oh,
but I'm here, so that's good. Yeah, I'm here today, so that's good. And you, of course, got involved with Challenging Learning yourself. Do you want to say a little bit how you picked up on working with us?
How I got into this thing, how I got to meet you in the physical world, actually, which is also really neat. I love this way of connecting virtually, but still, I think luckily the physical meetings, they do have like an edge
Yeah.
that does not exist in virtual meetings. I think that's a good thing. But yeah, how did it all start for me? Actually, I got this this mail or message or what was it from a colleague of mine in London. Lisa, she is a really good friend and colleague, and she keeps track of what's going on in the world, especially in the field of education. And so she mailed me and said, "Hey, did you check this thing out? There's this education consultancy. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Challenging learning. And these guys will have kind of a free professional development workshop in Stockholm, it seems." And I go, "All right, like free. Always interesting." And as it happened, I was traveling that way. I do not travel that much as you do, Richard, on the contrary. But I was heading to this conference in Malmö about using using technology in the field of, well, yeah, pedagogical use of information technology, basically, in Malmö. This time being about the Google offerings in this area and in this field, which I've been digging into, and my school have been digging into pretty deeply for a couple of years now. So I noticed, heavens, what a coincidence, and that was just good luck for me that you guys were in Stockholm that very day. That was late in 2015, last year, autumn.
Yes, it was in October, I think.
Right.
Wasn't
Yeah.
it? Yes, in 2015.
Right. So I just managed to pull it off, staying in Stockholm before moving on to Malmö, and met you and your colleagues there and a bunch of other folks working in education. And it was a really, really interesting day. And actually, I must say, what kind of surprised me was that there was no obvious sales pitch from you guys. It was a pretty darn good workshop, and at least to me, it gave lots of food for thought, for sure.
Good.
So very good thing. And then you guys said that if we want to, we could actually shoot a video clip.
Yeah.
When we are in action with the students, and you could give us some feedback. This is scary stuff.
Yeah.
So, heavens, I managed to pull it off in the end. A quick video clip, and
in English as well too.
Huh?
And in English.
In English. Well,
Even
that was
more.
yeah,
Just
that was
for my benefit, Neela.
that was natural. Since it made good sense, since I have this bunch of students, and I have English classes with them. So, I mean, it was just a good match in every way. So I guess you've seen it. I will not try to, like run it, play it back here right now. Not because I wouldn't dare. I would, but I'm not quite sure how to do it to start with. Actually, there are some interesting issues using Google Hangouts on air, connected to the whatever rules and regulations Google and YouTube have. And you don't need to do, really stupid things in order for those guys to kick you out from, for example, hosting Hangouts. It might be enough that there's some kind of like commercial radio music playing in the background. I hope you don't switch on commercial radio, Richard.
No, I don't.
And that might be enough for those guys to give me a copyright strike. I would not like that.
No.
But you have seen the video clip, and the video clip, actually, it was in the event, like the event I made for our meeting in advance. It was there like a what do you call it, like a trailer thing for a while. But man, I don't know what to say about that thing.
Well, let's start with thinking about, I guess, the context for people, if anybody's watching, I guess, if anybody's watching.
Hope not. I sure hope.
But to put it into context, our aim really was to get people that we thought would be interesting, people that would be able to engage with the similar kinds of processes that we advocate, and working with children, and people who have the same kind of shared beliefs and values as we do. That was the starting point, really.
By the way, a quick one from me before I forget. There is some kind of connection with you guys, meaning challenging learning and John Hattie in Australia, right?
That's right. That's correct. Yeah, that's right. So,
Okay.
so that's what I was talking before about working in the large project in Denmark. That's with
really interesting. Perhaps you can you know, say something nice to Professor Hattie about my stuff so I can interview him, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure I will. I'll be meeting with him in another couple of months. So
very good. Don't forget this thing. I would really love to do it. You know, it would be awfully cool.
Yeah,
he's obviously well known around the world, and definitely very well known and respected in Sweden and in the Nordic area.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he's a fantastic guy.
Sorry for the interruption, Richard, but I just had to say
that. He's a fantastic guy, great educator, great ideas, and his visible learning's making a profound difference to the lives of kids who are with schools who are engaged in the process. So it's been really, really good. Yeah. It's a pleasure to work in that particular project and the other projects that we've got going on in Scandinavia to do with visible learning as well. Mm-hmm. But challenging learning, from our point of view, we were looking, as I said before, about trying to engage people in dialogue and in challenge, creativity, inquiry, getting kids to question a little bit more about thinking about my phone's going off.
Oh,
nice. Turn that off.
By the way, anything could happen here on my side. It's just I rarely do this stuff if I can avoid it, like in the middle of the day, since you know,
who knows,
a couple of students or 10 teachers might just get in here, and in that case, I just say, "Hi guys," you know, wave to Richard.
Well, that's life, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So yeah, we wanted to get people that had the same shared ideas and values as we did, and then we wanted to introduce some of our thinking and some strategies that we would perhaps typically use with students, and we shared those strategies with you, and we discussed how the impact they might have on students. And then we asked, and there was a group of about 10 or 12 of you, and then we asked those people to, if they wanted to go away and to try some things out, and then to let us know about the impact that it's had on the students that you were working with. So you did that, of course, and you filmed it, which allowed me to be able to see a little insight into your practice as well, which is a real privilege. And so thank you very much for doing that, because I know it's tricky to get to open yourself up, I suppose, to the world when you're videoing yourself on camera. But you learn so much from it, don't you?
Oh man, it's just incredible, and it's really a pity that we don't do it more often. And I say we, I'm not actually sure what I mean by that. But I guess actually, well, at least from my grassroots point of view, in my area and perhaps in the Nordic area, it is not extremely common that we do that.
No, it's not, Nilo. It's not common. I would say it's not common in the UK either. We recognise it's good practice, but it's people are scared by it, understandably.
Yeah.
To see yourself on camera for the first or second or third time, you focus on things like, how am I standing, how am I speaking, and you focus on the things that really have some impact on learning, but they're not really. I don't have the biggest impact. You tend to focus on yourself and not really on the students and the impact that what you're doing has on the students for the first few times you do it.
And perhaps we teachers are a bit of lone wolves in a way, like this is my classroom and I do my thing with my students and it's no one else's business, you know. Perhaps a principal can just, you know, sneak in.
Yeah, that's right.
Briefly, but that's about it. And
Right.
I don't think this thing works any longer.
No, you're right, and I think that the idea of having closed classrooms is something if that we have moved away from and are continuing to move away from. But it's so culturally embedded in the teaching profession.
Oh yeah,
Close your door, and you do what you do with your students, and nobody really knows what's going on. And when I first started teaching, that was absolutely the norm. So back in the 90s, nobody came into my classroom at all. I was visited in the first year as a newly qualified teacher by my principal at the time. She came in to have a look what I was doing. She didn't really make any comments. She stayed for about 10 minutes and then she went, and I never did know what she thought. I assumed she thought it was okay because I was still employed a year later. So I assumed I wasn't doing a bad job, but there was that kind of difference between you went in, you closed your door and you did what you did. There was no real measure of your practice at all. There was no way of improving your practice at all, because how can you improve your practice if you're the only person that sees what you do?
Absolutely. And by the way, in this context, I must just briefly mention this initiative from a Swedish school in southern Sweden. I had some very good colleagues there, especially one guy. Hey, Mikke, if he's watching, they have this platform. They've been developing a platform using, of course, the internet and well, pedagogical IT in general terms, to make it easy for teachers to give feedback to each others, and that's pretty cool. I haven't seen anything just like that anywhere. It's called Looper, and the school is called Årstaskolan in Stockholm. You might be interested in checking that out sometime.
Yeah. You'll have to email me the name of that.
I will.
Checking it out, definitely. Yeah. There are various different kind of tools that are marketed in the UK for coaching. 360-degree cameras that you can put in the corner of your classroom, and then you can link it up to a kind of a secure site which you can then share. Choose who you share it with within your school, and you can use it for coaching in that kind of way. I won't mention names because they're product names, but there's some really good materials out there that enable you to do that. But you know, as far as I can see, really, you can invest £10,000 in a whole sort of suite of coaching materials to enable you to do that, or you can stick an iPad in the corner of your classroom, and you can do it that way, and the effect is exactly the same, because the principle of sharing what you do and talking through that with somebody else is incredibly powerful. And the first time I did it was probably about maybe 15-16 years ago, and I know how squeamish I was about the whole process, because I remember vividly thinking that if somebody videos me, what happens if I remember thinking, what happens if some child misbehaves and things off in the classroom? That was one of my worries.
If I misbehave.
Yeah. What happens if I misbehave? What happens if I say something? And you kind of worry that, you know, you may get Tourette's or something, this kind of compulsion to sort of say inappropriate on air, so to speak. And of course that doesn't happen. And when you play the video back, for the first couple of times that I videoed it, I just focused on myself. And that has been my experience when I've done coaching with people. That's exactly what they do. So I usually just allow that kind of a process to happen, really, because it's important you get out of the way of looking at how you stand, how you move your hands, how you speak, and those kinds of things. And then you shift the focus the more you do it. So after maybe the second or third time, the focus then starts to shift on the impact that you're having with the students. So what you're doing, and how is it impacting on the learning of the students? So you then you cease to notice the things, the little idiosyncrasies that you have yourself that are maybe not important. I mean, sometimes they can be important. I remember the first time I videoed myself, I waved my hands around an awful lot. I was doing a lot of this all the time. And it was incredibly distracting. So I remember consciously thinking, I've got to really stop using my hands as much.
We've been talking about this stuff with my students. You know,
Mm.
it's this very thing. You know, like giving each other feedback. Of course, preferably in a positive way, to you know, like empower each other's.
Yeah.
And that's of course one of these things that you really don't even notice that ever if no one doesn't tell you what's
That's
going
right.
on. You know?
Absolutely.
Did you notice that you were fooling around with your pencil all the
right.
time or whatever?
That's right.
What
Yeah.
did I?
Right.
There's no way if you don't get
That's right.
feedback.
And
Do
also,
you? Yeah, go ahead.
so there's things like that that are important, but they mustn't distract from the main purpose really of the process, which is what are you doing that you can what can you do to improve the impact on the teaching that you do, and what in turn obviously how does that impact upon the learning of the students that you're working with. So I hope that, I mean, I found watching your video really really useful for me as well. I've not seen your teaching in your classroom, so I've not have the privilege of being able to come into your classroom, but it kind of felt like I for a very short period of time was there with you in the classroom as well. And it was interesting. I did notice what you did actually on the video was you put the camera a lot on yourself as well.
Of course I had to do that for that was the obvious way to do it for several reasons. I did not want the students to be in the video much at all. Things get a lot easier if they are not. Obviously, I should actually check with the parents in case they are appearing there, especially if it will be available somewhere like outside of of our school or whatever. Of course, I would need to check with the parents in that case.
Yes,
really important. And in this case, it wasn't about my students that much. It was about me and my interaction with the students, right?
Yes.
So,
that's right. And you decided to use one of the strategies that we had talked about in Stockholm, which was opinion lines and opinion corners.
Yeah, it's like the it was like the easiest way of doing this thing, this four corners exercise, and I wanted to get them moving a bit to start with. When I started my English class, and then I kind of had this idea that I want to know what they feel about presentations, and if they think it's important or not. And of course, if I just stand there and ask them, okay, what do you think about this presentation thing? Is it important or not? They go, you know, it's a really nice bunch of students, but I need to get them talking. I need to make them talk more.
That's right.
So I figured, okay, let's try this thing and see what happens.
Yeah, well, that's great, because we talked about the importance of dialogue and collaboration in learning. So that's one of the things, that's one of the strategies that you can use, that you can get students engaged in dialogue, asking a question which might be provocative question, but which gets them to think and to question maybe their own pre-held beliefs about something as well. And often students, as we all do as people as well, we have a very clear idea that we think about something, and we don't often get the opportunity to question that idea with anybody else, with a group of people. So it just remains a truth for us, and it's actually, I suppose, in exploring the possibilities of different views and opinions that we can then look to build on our own as well. And sometimes our opinion may change and sometimes it may not, but it's the opportunity that we've had to have the dialogue, isn't it? That's the
absolutely.
part of the process.
I was a bit worried that it would turn into a bit of a mess. Since well, I tried to explain it really clearly what the whole thing was about to start with. Of course, they knew I'd be, like shooting the video clip. I had told them, a long time ago that I'll be doing that, and you guys don't need to care since no one is interested this time in what you're doing. And then, yeah, sure, they were cool about that. But the instructions in English, well, giving instructions in general terms, it's not always that easy. And in a foreign language, sure, they are pretty darn good in English, but anyway, so I kind of tried to be super clear what it was about. I had not gone through everything like in Swedish before that occasion, so that was a deal right there, right then.
That was kind of one of the first times that they'd done something like that, was it?
With me, yes.
With you, yeah.
Unfortunately, I must say, luckily, I haven't been teaching that long. I mean, it's a privilege having those guys, since they are so really, really nice bunch of students.
Yeah.
But I've just had them like a little bit more than half a year, like more than one semester, a bit more than one semester.
Okay. So what made you decide to pick opinion corners? What made you decide to go with that particular strategy?
Well, of course, it's not too complicated, and it gives you quite a bit of it gives you a good bird eye view in very short period of time, and it makes they have to move around a bit, which is really neat. Those guys, they sit too much, for heaven's sake. So and it's a good thing, at least that's what I feel, that make them move in a bit without taking a break in a way that they are scattered around everywhere. In a way, it's almost like taking a break, even though it's not.
Yeah.
So I like that as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is something different, isn't it, to what they normally would do in the traditional kind of lesson sense, really, I guess.
Yeah, at least in a traditional kind of language lesson, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's good in that sense. And I think also as well, we talked about the importance of dialogue. It creates dialogue. They have to think about, they have to have an opinion about something, then they have to be able to express that opinion to somebody else. I suppose for the benefit, I'm just thinking of this audience as it goes out to the millions of people that are watching this.
Yeah, you got that one right, huh?
If we just explain what it was essentially, it's the idea you put a statement up or a question, and then people have to stand in a corner that best represents their opinion, and those corners are agree, disagree, strongly disagree. And it's as simple as that, really. And the idea from you posted a statement up on the whiteboard, which was, can you remember what it was? It was about your English, wasn't it?
Well, I started with that just to make them try it out once. Something like my English teacher speaks great English, or whatever,
right.
Like kind of fooling around with those guys, and it's fun doing stuff like that with especially with these with this bunch of students. They are fun to work with all the time. So to get them started, and so that they understand what this is all about, and it worked. I guess it worked.
Yeah. I think
it was like warming up a little bit.
Yeah, because the more provocative the question could be, or the statement is, the better the quality of dialogue that you get. So we talked about, well, one of the things that I did recently with the class, because in Britain at the moment there's the referendum that will happen in June about possibly leaving the EU.
Oh yes,
so, that's a big thing for Britain at the moment.
Huh?
It's all over the news. So putting something topical like that with some students earlier on this week, which was just a statement: Britain should leave the EU. And then, immediately then you've got a whole range of different opinions about that, and people are able to express their opinions about that as well. And also what was interesting when I did that particular activity was that people who had stood in the agree corner, having listened then to the disagree arguments, some of them moved across. So, and that's great, because it showed that people are willing to listen, engage with different ideas, and be influenced by that, and that affects their thinking as well.
Absolutely.
So, and that's ultimately what we're wanting to do, really. We're wanting to get people to put cohesive arguments together, to be able to persuade, to be able to express themselves eloquently, clearly, and opinion corners and opinion lines enable students to do that. After practice, it takes time, of course, because students often, we ask as teachers, we ask more often than not closed questions. Often they're factual based questions, knowledge based questions. So this is taking it out a little bit. This is more based around people's opinions and maybe attitudes towards particular things rather than what do I know.
Yeah.
What did you find was the biggest kind of learning that you got from the experience? What did you take away from the whole thing?
What did I take away from the whole thing? Well, it did engage them for sure. And I think that the reason why was partly because it was something different. Instead of just asking another question and putting up a hand, it is a different way of doing that. And just that fact alone is a positive thing, I'd say.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I did get, I think, a pretty good bird eye view about what they think about the importance of presentations. And I believe they were honest about that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was kind of neat, since we were just about to start working with presentations. And now we, by the way, almost finished. Pretty much all of them have now done their 5-minute presentation in English. So time for some feedback.
Building upon what you had started to do with them in the opinion corners.
Well, that was like a little bit of, I like I said, I wanted to get their views, what they think about it, and make them thinking about why we do present and what it is all about. So yeah, I guess that was the deal. And of course, it's awfully tough presenting, especially if you got a bunch of people you don't know, or especially if it's potentially anyone could be watching.
Yeah, sure.
And if you add a foreign language into the mix, oh man, then it really gets demanding. And I think, talking about the way we work, again, I don't know, the way I work, I should be paying a lot more attention to that, putting lots of more effort into making them work with presentations and improving themselves and giving them more confidence in doing that. Absolutely. I think it's so important. So important.
What do you think the students learned from the process?
Well, they got the bird eye view too, which is kind of cool, being a part of it. And very, very clear one as well. So it wasn't just me, the teacher. It was them as well. And by the way, pretty much all of them seem to think that this is important, the presentation skills. So that was a good thing as well. What else did they get from that? Perhaps also that there are other ways of expressing what you think than just putting up your hand, which is okay as well.
Yes, it is. That's right. Is that the way that you would say students respond to questions most of the time? you ask a question, teacher asks a question, students puts hands up?
Unfortunately, way too much still,
Mm.
I think.
Mm.
I think.
Mm.
I try to encourage discussions a lot, get them talking, not just answering my questions, but really discussing, listening to each other, and then sharing whatever they've been talking about. I try to do that quite a bit. But still, I think way too often there are these, like you said, more or less closed questions from the teacher. And that is a bit of a drag. No wonder if you get tired of that, you're a student.
It's not very interesting for the students if you just have to guess what's inside the teacher's head all the time, is it really?
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. So I'm wondering as well for you, if you were going to do something like this again, it's the million-dollar question, really, is it? What would you do differently?
Sure. I guess one thing is to put a little bit more energy in and effort and thought into making the exercise really a part of what you're doing, so it fits in as well as possible. And perhaps turning the whole thing upside down. That's what I really like doing, so that the students can use this stuff as well. That would be kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point of it, isn't it? Of course, really, we're wanting them to learn. That's why the very reason why we do anything is because
absolutely. And by the way, the stuff we're doing right now, this meeting we have, which just happens to be a public meeting in a way as well. In fact, it doesn't feel that way, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So my main motivation for doing this thing in public is, of course, that I do learn a lot every time on several levels. Just saying something and knowing the very fact that pretty much anyone with an internet connection could be watching and listening to this. It doesn't matter that they don't. It really doesn't matter. The thing is that it turns out into something. Again, there is this very, very specific edge into doing things in public. And I would love to do something, for example, through Hangouts on Air with my students and students in other parts of the world, like a newscast or whatever. It's perfect for that purpose. And that's something I've been planning for quite a long time, but never.
That'd be really cool. It would. That would be brilliant.
Yeah, it would work. It would be really easy. Technically speaking, it would be really easy. Yeah, which is always a good thing.
Yeah. So you were getting the students to think about their presentation, and we've been talking about how you present yourself, and of course something like this would be really another medium about how you can present yourself. You have to think about how you come across to an audience. It's different. How you come across to an audience when it's physically in the room is different. How you portray yourself on a screen like this, isn't it? But nevertheless, there is always a way that you have to present yourself. There is always a presentation style that you have to adopt. So I was wondering if on the strategy of opinion corners and opinion lines that you used, if one of your purposes seemed to be to try and to get them to generate some criteria for what would make a good presentation. Would that be right?
At least to some kind of plant a seed a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Okay. Yeah. This is what we're going to do now. And way too often, I think I just get going about whatever with the students, and afterwards I was, oops, perhaps I should have explained it a little bit more. I think it's easy to think that, oh well, everyone understands what I told them. They don't. Of course they don't, because I haven't explained it properly. So
Yeah, and I think that sometimes as well as teachers, we can get a little bit drawn into being a bit self-indulgent sometimes about things that we like or things that we think are important, and talk about those a lot. And
Sure.
I've seen some teachers spending huge parts of the lesson, 60, 70, 80% of the lesson talking about something that they find incredibly interesting.
Sure.
But the students may well not, and it becomes a bit like a show where you just come and sit and watch the teacher, and the teacher does most of the work.
Yeah,
Of course, we're trying to what we should be doing really is we should be trying to think of ways that we're going to create new ways that children can learn, and it shouldn't be about us. It should be about anything we do. It should be about trying to get them to learn better.
Talking about, for example, flipped classroom or
Right.
initiatives like that. Of course, that's nothing new.
No, that's right. But it's still, I think, culturally embedded in people. People go into teaching for a particular reason.
Yeah, they like their own voice, just like me.
Most people do. It's the biggest criticism when you look at, I've had the privilege of seeing hundreds of teachers teach in my professional career in various different roles. And the biggest criticism always when you're analysing yourself back afterwards is, crikey, I think I talk too much. And it's only when you look back at yourself, and that's why video is really powerful, of course, as well, because you can see on a video very clearly in an hour section how much you're talking and how much the students are learning. Because, of course, are the students learning if you're talking? Well, maybe a little bit, but I would argue not really, probably deep learning's going on. They're just listening to you opining your opinions. Yeah. So. Yep. I think that you know, something like an opinion corner, if you get them to think about the qualities of a presentation, using like statements such as you could put something like it's important to be humorous when giving a presentation, or it is important to have to be charismatic when you're presenting.
And what is that? What is being charismatic?
Exactly.
How you're supposed to present yourself? If
that's
the aim
right.
is being charismatic, you know.
That's right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So getting them to think and come up with criteria for themselves for how they present is would be. Really,
I've been doing stuff like, you know, like hiding under the table or whatever, and asking those guys, "Hey, what do you think? Would this presentation work?" And they were laughing their heads off. Basically, that was, you know, like one way of trying to make them think about it.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. But if they can generate their own criteria, it's much more powerful than if you give them criteria, because they will come up with the right criteria. They will come up with it.
The same thing. I was thinking of another thing completely here, actually, but the same thing here. You mentioned the making them like develop the criteria here. Now we are heavily into you know, figuring out the best ways of using the internet and netiquette stuff and all that. And of course, it must be coming from those guys. It must be coming from those guys. It doesn't make any sense if we, the teachers, the principal, whatever, we write down the rules and then we just hand it over. Hey, this is the deal, guys. Right. It's just not going to work. No, it's got to come from them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if there's ownership in any learning, then much deeper learning than if you've just been told it. So, and I think we need to move away, without a doubt, we need to move away from just this idea of knowledge being given by the teacher.
The
knowledge teacher gives the knowledge to students. Students then take away that knowledge and do something with it. Because actually, that's not developing life skills either. And ultimately what we're about here is developing students that life skills, really, isn't it? That they can go out and that they can be, they can be inquisitive, they can be reflexive and respond to the demands that the working world will demand of them. Think quickly on their feet, be able to express an opinion quickly, be able to listen, to be able to debate, to be able to, you know, all of those things are very, very important life skills.
Being able to make mistakes without feeling awful about that.
That is the crucial.
I think it's a crucial thing, since making mistakes in traditional schools, whatever that is, if there is such a thing. Making mistakes is a bad thing. And of course, if you've learned that making mistakes is the worst thing you can do, you do not want to make mistakes, and that makes you keep quiet.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, which is, of course, what Carol Dweck talks about with growth, with the growth mindset as well. That's exactly what a lot of people do. They have a perception of their intelligence, and then they will keep quiet. They won't engage in learning because they're frightened of appearing to be not smart. And we definitely don't want that at all. There's a fantastic acronym that I came across some time ago, and it's FAIL, and it's first attempt in learning. Isn't that brilliant? So if you think about FAIL, first attempt in learning, you start to see failure as
I must write that one down.
Learning. Yeah.
Where do you get that from?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know where I've got it from. It's one of those things that I just came across, probably reading some article somewhere, and I just thought that's a fantastic acronym. It's probably on Twitter somewhere or other, but
I bet.
it's a fantastic acronym to. Well, it's a little kind of acrostic, isn't it? But it gets people to think about. Any sort of learning has to involve failure of some kind or other. Has to.
By the way, it's interesting the way societies function and what is acceptable, what is not. At least my impression is that, say, in the States, failing, like in the business sector, that's something that's expected of you, especially like in tech, like tech entrepreneurs. They do need to fail a couple of times, otherwise no one takes them seriously. On my home turf, failing is a bad thing. Fail a couple of times, no one takes you seriously. Isn't that interesting?
Well, I think the thing about failure is that if you fail, it's about how you address that failure and what you do next.
Absolutely.
If you just keep on failing, then of course, and you don't learn from any mistakes at all.
Keep making the same mistakes. That's not a good strategy.
Same mistakes, then that does become a problem. But if you see failure as part of the process of learning, and it's a necessary part of the process of learning, then you analyze that failure. Then you can only learn from it. And I love that idea of it being a first attempt in learning, because anytime you learn something new, you're not going to get it right first time.
And
if you do, arguably you're not learning it properly.
Or at least you're not going to get it perfect the first time.
No, that's right.
Of course, you want to get it as good as you can possibly get.
Absolutely, that's right. But there's the idea of failure. I don't think I've never seen failure for myself as being a problem. I see failure being a problem if I repeat those failures, but I don't see it being a problem if I fail once.
And of course,
I'll make sure I don't do it again, and I'll learn from it.
Being successful every now and then, or at least feeling that, hey, this wasn't so bad. It feels good as well.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So you need to balance it off the two a little bit, really. Don't you? Failure is a very it's a very damaging sort of word. We use it a lot.
It is.
In a very negative sense, and I think we need to flip it around a bit, and we need to get students to think about failure in a positive way.
There's there's another other expression altogether. Again, talking about entrepreneurs and startups and all that. What the heck? I almost got it on the tip of my tongue. They don't actually talk that much about failure, like for a startup or so. Especially those that turn out to be successful, they just kind of reroute. What on earth is the expression? They pivot. They pivot. Meaning, of course, that they hit the brick wall and they need to do something about that, something positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to have to go.
I understand. We've been going on.
And I'd love to sit and talk to you for all afternoon.
Tons of fun, man. And once again,
it's fantastic. We must do this again.
Completely free. I've learned tons of stuff. Just never ceases to amaze me.
Well, I've learned as well, and I have to say, I think it's a privilege to share with for you to allow me to be part of this process with you as well. So I feel really privileged to be part of it too, as well.
Super. So let's call it quits. But if you have just like a couple of seconds after I stop the broadcasting or webcast, whatever. If you can stay a minute, that would be great.
Absolutely, that's no
Okay.
problem at all. So,
So to the world, bye bye.
bye bye.